Shauna and Jody here with Real Sisters, Real Talk.
We're glad to have you joining us as we talk about growing in our faith with God.
Hey, it's Real Sisters, Real Talk. Jody and Shauna here. And I know that life can get really, really busy. This is like the season, right? When things get kind of crazy and kind of hairy and all the schedules picking up and everything. And we can get tired and we can feel overwhelmed pretty quickly. So I'm kind of curious, Jodes, what's your go-to when you're feeling like, you know what? I have put in a day or I have walked through a week or a season or whatever. And you're like, I am so tired. I'm so exhausted. What's your go-to little pick me up kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, it would probably be like my treat, something that I think oh, this is so refreshing and so good. I love a good acai bowl where you get to build it yourself and add the things that you like and get exactly what you want. And that just feels like a real treat to me. Especially if I've gone and spoken someplace, taught someplace, that's like my little reward is an acai bowl. How about you?
Yum. You're so healthy. That's so good. I love acai bowls, by the way, with a whole bunch of peanut butter in there. Do you put peanut butter on your acai bowl?
I put almond butter on it, but yes.
Oh, that sounds so good. So good right now. I think my go-to right now, my little treat, I'm just going to treat myself a little something, something, would probably be ice cream of some kind. We went out for ice cream over the weekend.
Ice cream, like an ice cream bar or like a bowl of ice cream?
No, I want to go have them scoop the ice cream for me and hand it to me with hot fudge on it. Something like that. But it's either, you know what though, that's real specific, but I really, really like food of any kind. So it doesn't have to be specifically ice cream. It can be any food of any kind I find to be rewarding, or a purchase, like a clothing purchase. Oh, I'm just so tired. I'm just going to buy myself a pair of shoes or whatever the case may be, can be a pick-me-up for me. But I remember one time when the kids were really little and Dan was traveling, and it was just, man, they were little. It was demanding. I was homeschooling and it was 24/7 with the kids, and I had taken them to the mall to just kind of get us out of our atmosphere, switch it up a little bit. And I bought a Cinnabon for the kids. And so, those things are huge, and they were little, and everybody got a fork, and they all dove in and they ate the Cinnabon. And total honesty, I'm just full disclosure for you here. I bought a second one just for me. And the intent with this Cinnabon was that when the kids we got back home and they were all bathed up, and had their dinner and they were tucked in bed, and it was just me by myself to reward myself for just having the kids by myself for a whole week. I was going to heat up this Cinnabon and just relax and enjoy it and not have to share it with anyone. So that's what I did. Yeah. Got kids all tucked in, put it in the microwave just for 15 seconds. You know what I mean? You don't want all the frosting to melt. You just want it to be warm and soft. And so I did that, had it on a plate and made a cup of decaf. And I was like, you know what? Before I sit down to enjoy this, I'm just going to go to the bathroom real quick. So I did. I went to the bathroom, and I come out of the bathroom, and I'm looking at the coffee, and I'm looking at the plate, and the plate is empty. The Cinnabon isn't there. It's gone. And I'm like, did it fall off the plate in the microwave? Is it still in the box? What is wrong with my brain? Where is my Cinnabon? And right about that time where I'm doing the math and I'm trying to figure out what could have happened to my, the cinnamon roll the size of my head that I was ready to dive into, I see our Labrador retriever licking her lips in delight. I sunk down and I just cried. I literally sat on my kitchen floor and just cried. It was so sad.
That is so sad, because you're looking so forward to this little reward.
Yes.
And it was stolen away. Sad. Yeah. You know what's funny? You share that story, but I remember way back when I was doing youth ministry. I oversaw youth ministry and children's ministries for a season at the church. Now I'm in adult ministries, but we would do Vacation Bible School, and it was the biggest thing we did all year. It was a week of 400 plus kids and high energy, and oh my goodness, you just gave it everything. And we would get on that stage and jump and just, really have a workout. And I just remember, and then everything went into that. You were up early to get there early, and it just took so much energy to make that week take place, much less the lead up to it. And so one of the things I would do when I was running it is I would have somebody stop and get donuts for the team that was running the upfront part. And so after we would finish the morning session, we would sit down for our kind of debrief meeting, and we would each have a donut,
Oh, yum.
and felt like, yeah, we had earned it. It was the only time all year long that I would eat a donut, but like we had earned it. We had worked so hard. But the funny thing about that is when we turn to something like that for our replenishment, it didn't nourish us.
Hmm.
It didn't make me feel good. It did not give me the energy I needed to get through the next 3 hours. It probably depleted me more than anything
Yep.
else. But I'll tell you what, man, I counted down the minutes until I could get my hands on one of those.
On that
And
donut.
so it's just funny, right? Yeah. So it's so funny to think of what we turn to. Does
Hmm.
it really feed us? Or is it not what's life giving?
Or is it possible that it could just disappear and you don't get to have it at
Or
all?
you actually have this and then it's taken away and you have to deal
There
with
it
that.
is. There it is. And there it's gone. And there I am on the floor crying. But yeah, you know what? We've been talking now for like, it's really sad. It's kind of pathetic, but I think you feel me. I don't feel judged. I feel understood in this moment.
Nope.
But yeah, we've been talking now for, we're going into our third week and talking about Matthew 11:28 through 30. It's just this incredible passage where Jesus gives an invitation to us, and he's actually talking to us exactly in the moment when we're worn out, when we're tired, and we feel like
Mm-hmm.
we've given it all we've gotten. And this is what Jesus says. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart, and you'll find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light."
Beautiful. Come to me when you
Come
are
to me.
exhausted, when you are spent, when you have given all that you can give, sometimes for God, right? His
Mm,
invitation, come to me. Find rest for your souls in me, in my presence. What a beautiful it's a perfect answer to when we give everything we've got and we need to be nourished. He gives us the answer. Come to
yeah.
me.
Yeah. Come
Spend
to
time with
me.
me. Right. Which is absolutely what we need to be doing. I honestly have kind of opposite story of my donut story, but there was a season, and this was not that many years ago, that I just had a ton on me with ministry, and so I was pushing really hard. It often happens in the fall when we're doing a
Mm,
big launch kind of kickoff, and so this was a number of years ago. I mean, I've had it happen since then, but this was a number of years ago. This example, and I really felt like God was I had nothing left. I had given everything I had and I was depleted. And I really felt this invitation by God, come to me,
mm.
spend time with me. I will nourish your soul. And I knew it. I knew the invitation was there and I felt his prompting, but I kept finding more things that needed to be done. And I just didn't have time. And, if I did have time, I really needed to run to the grocery store because I'd been neglecting my family for the last couple of weeks. Or, I just felt like there was this constant need to do something else. And, but I kept feeling it. And so I remember specifically, it was a Friday, it was my day off because Fridays and Saturdays are my day off because I'm in ministry. And I was driving from running one errand after the other. And I knew that day was a day that I was going to do it this week. I was going to spend time with the Lord, just
Mm.
him and I. And I felt like he was inviting me to go to a park and walk. And so I was out running errands. And as I was going by, I was going to go by this specific park. And I felt like the Lord said,
Mm.
stop, come and spend some time with me. And I was on my way to something else. And I pulled over to the side of the road, parked at the curb, and I got out of the car and I'm no joke, I walked across the sidewalk and I hit the grass and
Mm.
I just began to weep. And it wasn't a sadness. It was a, oh Lord, I'm here.
Mm.
It was just this being in the presence of God that I had finally stopped enough to move into his presence in a real way. And I just kind of walked across the grass. I sat for a bit. I walked for a bit, but it was one of the most life-giving, restorative moments that I can remember. I mean, I've had times even since then, like last fall was incredibly busy and I went away to the beach and went and sat on the beach for a while and
Mm.
walked down the beach for a while and just to spend time with the Lord. No music, no, nothing else, just to spend time with the Lord listening. But that's what he means when he says that invitation, come to me. If you're spent, if you're depleted, come, spend
Mm.
some time with me because he's the one who brings life.
Yeah. That's so good. I just heard somebody use the analogy of our life being like a cosmic dance with Jesus, our cosmic dance with God, and we're invited into this. And it's so often we spend our life, we head out into the dance floor, if that's life, if you will, and we're like, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're like trying to hit all the marks and like do this choreography thing, and we feel like there's a spotlight on us and we've got to shine and we've got to be good and we got to keep the energy up and we got to keep the crowd happy and all these things. And then, when life really is this cosmic dance is the one who loves our soul saying, come to me, come dance with me, just rest in my arms. And, the dance of life is going to have really, really high points. There's going to be some beautiful things that happen. There's going to be difficult moments. Sometimes they'll happen in the same day. Sometimes they'll happen within the
Yeah.
same hour. But we get to live this life and this cosmic dance with this God who loves us and who holds us and sees us through every part of it. And just we've talked before in the last couple of weeks about how this particular verse in the Message version says, learn the unforced rhythms
Mm-hmm.
of grace. And I feel like in the dance with God, we get to, that's where we find this unforced rhythm of grace that we get to live in with him, in company with him. And there are so many other things that say, come to me, come to me, come to me, come to marketing is, that's what it's all about, right? Is like, if you smoke this cigarette, you will be famous. If you drink this drink, you will be healthy and fit. If you wear this thing, everybody will like you. Like there's just all these things that say, come to me, come to me, come to me. And some of them are really good. Some of the things, honestly, if I'm genuine about the things that I go to, a lot of times I go to you. A lot of times I go
Yeah.
to my husband. A lot of times I go to a really
Yeah.
good friend. And those aren't bad things. Those aren't bad things. But when we begin to expect those people to meet something in our soul that only God can, well, then it's not a good thing anymore. And sometimes the things that we go to are just neutral things like, ice cream and cinnamon rolls and donuts or whatever the case may be. Sometimes, I mean, I've been a workout addict at times where I thought I have to work out, and I thought, man, I don't know that that's healthy. If I have to, there's something that's, I've crossed a line there. But sometimes it's really unhealthy stuff. Sometimes it is smoking cigarettes or chewing tobacco
Mm-hmm.
or alcohol or
Alcohol or
drugs.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, we go to things that actually have addictive qualities to them that lie to us and tell us that we're going to find some kind of satisfaction there, and it's a straight up lie. And the whole time the lover of our soul is saying, I'd love to dance with you. May I have this dance?
Mm-hmm.
Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest for your soul.
Yeah. Yeah, one more example of things that we go to an unhealthy relationship. We think that
Mm.
it's going to feed us in some way, and the truth is that will not fulfill us. God is inviting us into this intimate relationship, and I love even going back a little bit. You said the unforced rhythms, so it's not a working to be with God or do it's about just coming into his presence and
Yeah.
spending time with him in his presence, letting him be our healer, letting him be the one who fills us up. So then practically, sister, what does that time look like for you? Like I shared one example of going to a park and just not turning on music, just spending time with God, listening, praying, letting him tend to my soul in a way that only he can. But like, do you have any examples of how you do that? What it looks like to come to him?
Journaling is a big part of my relationship with the Lord and my communication with the Lord.
Mhm.
And it's some of how He's made me. I don't necessarily always know what I think or what I feel until it's written. So I need to just take pen in hand and have a blank page in front of me. And I will write Him. What my journaling looks like is it's a letter to Him. So it always starts with, good morning, Lord, good morning, Father, or whatever, and ends with, I love you, I trust you, heart S. So I sign all my letters to the Lord. Um, but that's journaling is a big part for me. Being in God's word is a big part of me resting in Him. And that's one that's can get kind of tricky because sometimes we can read the Bible and feel like we've got a to-do list to check off instead of we're actually meeting with the lover of our soul in that time and to say, I want to know you more. So as I read through
Mhm.
scripture, I just want to know you better because I love you and I love spending time with you. Um, but that's something that can slip into feeling more like a task than sitting together and getting to know each other kind of a time. Um, those are two elements that always exist for me. But the other day I was heading to work and I was reading or I'm listening to this audiobook and I'm learning about something new and I was very excited about it. And usually on my way to work, I've got a devotional that I do, Lectio 365. It's an audio devotional. And then I do listen to the verse of the day, the video through you version. And then I kind of go, okay, Lord, we still have, we still have 30 minutes. What do you want to do for the rest of my commute? Cause I've got
Yeah.
quite a little drive. And so sometimes it's worship, sometimes it's prayer. It can vary a little bit, but I was very excited about what I was learning in this book. And I was like, what should we do? And I'm like, I can read the book later. And I felt like the Lord was saying to me, let's read the book. And so it was just the together, you don't even have to necessarily be doing something spiritual to come to him and to enjoy him and spend time with him. I've picked up a practice of memorizing scripture while I work out, so it's, it doesn't have
Yes.
to be, I think sometimes we think we get, I don't know, a little bit too, law oriented or rule oriented about our time with the Lord and think I have to have my highlighters and I have to have my hot coffee and I have to be on a table and there can't be anybody in the house and all the things.
Right.
But God just enjoys your
And I
company.
have Yeah, and I have to have an hour of time, and the truth is
Right.
it's practicing the presence. We've talked about that before. It's practicing the presence of God and being in his presence at all times. And so we can incorporate that into all kinds of things, and God cares about all of you. The whole big
Mm-hmm.
picture, you, not just your spiritual. He cares about all of you. One of the things I want to say in what you shared about journaling is I love how you shared that you write a letter to God. So it's not a dear diary. Here's what happened today. It is intentionally a letter to God. And it's processing what you're experiencing, what you're feeling, maybe what
Mm-hmm.
emotions are rising up in God's presence. It's just writing it down. And so it's journaling intentionally in a
Mm-hmm.
spiritual way. And so that's a really, I think, good point.
Sometimes when I journal too, I'll have questions for him. And so I'll write out the question and then there's like a few lines that are just blank. I'll be quiet maybe and listen for a while to see if he's going to give me an answer right then at the moment. And sometimes he does, but sometimes the answer comes later. And so I just kind of leave that space there and just to, remember that that's kind of an ongoing part of the conversation that I has asked him a question and I'm waiting for him to give me some clarity on that. But I'd love to hear, Jodes, what you do. What is it? You told us about the park experience, just like sheer exhaustion. But what are the ways that
Mhm.
you come to him?
Yeah. So, I mean, some of the basic daily ways are, reading the Word of God. That brings me into his presence, and I get to learn more about who he is and that kind of thing. I do journal. I'll write down kind of what I'm learning. Um, Kind of feel like what God is bringing up for me in that time and space. There are times when I have some music that I play and it's just instrumental music,
Mm.
because often when we play music with words, we start singing along. And so I specifically choose instrumental music so that I can just pay attention to what God is up to. I will even set a timer, knowing about how much time I need. And that way I can stay present
Mm.
in God's presence and not keep looking at my watch and thinking, has it been 10 minutes? Has it been 15 minutes? What
Yeah.
has it been? And so creating that space to just sit with the Lord. And I might even have, like you talked about in journaling, I might have a question that I just want to bring before him. I might just say, Lord, is there anything, I do this a lot. Is there anything you want to show me? Is
Mhm.
there anything you want to teach me? Is there something that I need to confess? Would you, because if we're not going to him to learn more about what we're wrestling with, then we're not going to be learning and growing. And so sometimes I'll do that. And I do have kind of my little spot in my house where I like to go to do that. Saturday mornings, I usually have a little more extended time. And so lately I've been sitting out.
Mm.
My kids and husband bought me this great little bench outside for our patio. My husband built us a patio in this last year, and so it's got cushions to it and some little footrests. And I love, on Saturday mornings, I go out and sit in my new patio with my new little bench, with my coffee and my Bible and my journal, and can just, it's an easy place for me to just sit in the presence of God
Mm.
and spend time with him. So those are kind of my go-tos. The other thing I would say is at night, I'm really trying to enter into my sleep very intentionally
Mm.
in the presence of God. And so that gives me a chance to look at the day. Where did I see you at work, Lord?
Yeah.
What things do I need to confess? And just lay at your feet so that I can rest in your presence tonight without holding those things. Just that mindfulness. Johnny and I pray together, but I also like to fall asleep praying for my family. Pray Colossians 1 over my family daily, each one individually. And so just, that those opportunities are all opportunities for me to spend in the presence of God. But there's often when I'm driving where I won't turn on music or a podcast or anything else. And it might be even running errands. And it's like, Lord, what's going on? Where do you want to meet me today? What are you up to that you're inviting me into? Would you give me eyes to see? Just being aware of his
Mm.
presence. And then there's times when real needs come, and I bring those to him in a different way. But those are kind of probably the most often that I use.
Yeah. I've got another question for you. So when you find
Yeah.
yourself turning to one of the other things, like we talked about how, I mean, there's good things that we turn to that,
Mhm.
but when you feel like you are falling into turning to other things and you're feeling the invitation of the Lord and he's saying, "Hey, I'd love to have you come to me." Are there are how do you become aware that God is inviting you, or how do you kind of not slip into letting those other things take his place?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things I can notice, and sadly it's often after the fact, is when I'm turning to something else, it's almost, I mean, this is generalizing, but it's almost like an act of gluttony. Like I
Mm.
can't get enough because it's not actually meeting the need. And so if it's food, I'm going to overeat that food and I'm going to feel sick. If it's shopping, I'm going to end up purchasing things that I really don't need and going to have to return later. Like, I'm going to do it to a point of gluttony. And
Mm.
then it's because you just feel yuck.
Hmm.
And then you realize, oh Lord, I'm trying to fill something that only you can fill.
Yeah.
And then I can actually look back and say, and you invited me here and you
Yeah.
prompted me here. And I just was bulldozing to what I wanted to fulfill that need. And so I even notice now, like, something I might come out of a busy season and I just think, I just want to go look on Amazon. Maybe there's something I need. I don't know. And oh, hold up, hold up.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
that's not the way that I need to fulfill getting filled up. And so I can
Yeah.
catch it quicker. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's definitely that gluttony piece. Yeah. I just feel like there's
Girl,
such a connection there.
you just nailed it.
You
That
feel it?
was, oh my gosh, that was so good. Yes, because ain't enough donuts in the world to satisfy your soul. Like you can go through a couple dozen and
Right.
your soul's not gonna be satisfied. I think, the other thing for me too is sometimes you talked about the Amazon thing. Like sometimes there are things that I go to and just the fact that I'm going there is like, oh, I'm tired. I'm really tired.
Yeah.
Like I don't need that. I don't want that. This is one of those things that I go to when I'm really tired. And so there are things like that that I turn to that are triggers to me to make me come awake to the idea that I'm overwhelmed. I'm exhausted. I feel like I deserve something because I worked really hard or whatever the case may be. Um, so yeah, it gets my attention the other way around, if that makes sense sometimes.
Yes. Yeah. And we need to pay attention to that because we need to look for those triggers. We need to learn what's happening and stop it. And then you get to stop it a little bit sooner and a little bit
Mm.
sooner. And you're a little bit quicker to catch it and a little bit quicker until finally you're turning to God first. And so it's this process and we're not going to do it perfectly, but we do need to be paying attention. And you know what? I'm just going to say this too. Like you kind of brought this up a few minutes ago. So we do want to turn to God to be filled up. We need godly people in our lives because we do go to each other. We'll
Mhm.
go to our other sisters, definitely to my spouse to process things out. And when we have godly people in our lives, they will point us to the Lord.
That's right.
And that's the right person we want to be able to not go to instead of God, but go to be challenged and to grow and to be pointed to the Lord. And then also, I want to be that person. When someone comes
Mhm.
to me, I want to always be pointing him to the Lord because that's my job. I can't fulfill what you need, but he can. And so I can help you see where he's at work. I can sometimes repeat things back to you to even you didn't notice it when you said it, but I can show you, no, no, no. Do you
Yeah.
see what he's doing? And that's how Lord, please use me that way. Right?
Yeah, you have done that in my life so many times. And one of the things that I really appreciate about our relationship too, and that we need to be looking for in the people that we confide in, because you can choose who you want to confide in, and you can go to the person who's going to say, "You're so right, they're so wrong," and just be your yes person. Or you can go to someone there have been times, Jodes, where I've said, I don't know how I'm handling this situation and if I'm doing okay. So I'm going to be really honest about what I'm doing in the moment. And I want some feedback from you. And your immediate response isn't, I think you handled that perfectly. Your response is, yeah, I'm not sure. Let me think on that or let me pray on that, and get back to you. And it's like, at first, you kind of take a breath and go, okay, maybe I really was off there. But don't you want to know that in the end? Like, I do.
Right. Me too. And you do that for me. And I'm so grateful. We need those people in our lives that are willing to really walk in the real stuff with
Yeah.
us and continue to point us to the Lord. Man, these conversations go so quick. What we've shared is absolutely our growth process. Like we are
Mm.
learning, we are leaning in. Sometimes we do it wrong and sometimes we do it right. And I wish I could tell you that in the last 2 weeks I haven't gone to the gluttony thing, but it's not true. And then there's times when, I've chosen the Lord, and I know that's true for you too, Shauna. So if
Yeah.
you're out there and you're thinking, oh man, I don't have it together. Well, neither do we. We're just all in this process, but we want to be growing and we want to be taking our next step toward Christ. So then when we look at this verse of Matthew 11:28-30, we just challenge you, sit with that. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. We've talked about this the last 2 weeks. Memorize this with us.
Mhm.
Sean and I are doing that too. Memorize it with us because it's such a beautiful invitation to spend time with the Lord. And just like we always remind you, we serve a real God, and he really loves you.